Trawling across the internet as I often do, I recently came across the concept of accent bias. Yes, you heard that right. And as I went down this rabbit hole, I was shocked to really see how much attention this topic has been getting in the last few years. Accents are nothing new, and I don't think it's a surprise that we build up opinions of someone based on how they speak. We categorize where they are from, what they are like, and unfortunately may also have a few prejudiced opinions based on someone's accent. I know I certainly have gotten many comments here telling me that I have a German accent. Now, what is implied there? A neutral observation? I initially thought this was more of a British thing based on the history of class divide in the UK and the distinction between the working class accent and sort of the received pronunciation, or the Queen's, maybe I should say King's English now. And also given the fact that the English-speaking West is currently obsessed with pulling itself apart to uncover every kind of prejudice. However, I almost fell off my chair when I actually discovered quite a few German articles which have been written about this topic, and it has apparently started to arrive in Germany. It's still in its infancy, but it seems that organizations and official bodies are looking into pouring in money and resources into researching this topic. Take this article from Forbes, for example. The writer is talking about her own linguicism or accentism. We do love our isms in English, don't we? Her accent biases when it comes to her 2-year-old. I'm not going to read the whole article, but here is a quote which I think really very nicely encapsulates what this whole subject and topic is trying to do. Research has shown that we tend to unconsciously group people into a specific social class and prejudice against them based on their accents. By thinking that someone with a particular accent is not very smart or clever, we are showing our unconscious bias. She then goes on to detail her own biases when she questioned the fact that she was horrified by her 2-year-old picking up the Scouse accent. For those of you who don't know, the Scouse accent is an accent that the people from Liverpool have, and it is, I would say, not seen as particularly attractive by the rest of the UK. Or the world, for that matter. Sorry. She then goes on to detail what we can do to stop our unconscious accent bias and lists real-world examples, especially in the workplace, of how having a particular accent can help or hinder you getting a job. As you may know by now, language is a topic that really fascinates me, and I do essentially see the way we speak, the words we use, and sort of how we describe our surroundings really does impact the way that we actually see and experience the world around us. And although I can't really argue with this article, I do think it is self-evident that we have many deep-rooted biases when it comes to accents. I do also think it's a very complex topic and that it's not really just about language. Why am I talking about this anyway? Well, if the last few years are anything to go by, I see that this trend might sort of ramp up in intensity in Germany. And I wanted to give you a heads up. You're welcome. The world is becoming increasingly complex, and in an attempt to really understand what's going on, we need to simplify, we need to categorize and distill the information overload into something that is just a little more tangible and understandable. And we do that through language, and language is, however, inextricably bound with culture. I think that you might agree within Germany exist many sub- and regional cultures, which in part can really be determined by an accent, by the way somebody speaks. Just to give a glaringly biased example, the beer-chugging, lederhosen-wearing Bavarians, or the stingy Swabians, or the elegant and sophisticated people of Hanover, or just the general East-West divide. We generally are drawn to people who are a little bit like us. You know, I know there is the phenomenon of opposites attract, but to reference a previous video I did about friendship, it's probably unlikely that a banker who loves to wear suits and drink champagne is going to bond closely with a vegan Greenpeace activist. There's just too many differences of opinions and differences in values. My point being that, particularly in the UK, we often assume particular social status cues based on accent. And it's actually not just the UK, it's really pretty much, I would venture, any country in the world. Just look at these US Southern hillbilly twang. There are definite negative connotations attached to this accent. I have certainly faced, let's call it, distrust in the UK because of the way I speak, And let's just say it would be better if I did not open my mouth when in Ireland. I have, on the other hand, also occasionally been mistaken for a highly educated gentleman because of the way I speak. However, whether it's positive or negative biases that you have experienced, this really says a lot more about others than it does about yourself. And yes, it might be prejudice and it might be that people are really being disadvantaged through this phenomenon, but is it really just about accent or language, or does it go a lot deeper? I'm very interested to see what the research will show in the coming years. I mean, after all, accent is not fixed, it can be changed. And this is why I find it really fascinating to look at this through the German context, because I know that many of you can sort of put on multiple different accents depending on your surroundings and where you are and the people who you are with. So maybe we can learn to change our accent based on the job or the industry which we are applying for. This is what Chris, an engineering student, really tried to do. I'll link the article down below. Nevertheless, as the Germans say, Menschen sind verschieden. People are different, and you never know what the hiring manager across the table from you prefers or likes. Maybe that person prefers or loves the French accent, which is, by the way, the most popular accent in Germany. Again, very interesting because that is not the case in the UK. Maybe that person adores the Bavarian slang, and so you're going to be putting yourself at a disadvantage if you try to speak with Hanover High German. I agree that it can be sometimes very difficult to know what to do and who to be, especially if you keep getting turned down for job opportunities and people repeatedly mention your accent and ask where you're from. It can be annoying and it can also be disadvantageous. But is the solution really to change the way we speak? Why stop there? What about the tone of your voice? What about the volume at which you speak or body language? Experts usually agree that 80% of communication is non-verbal. So if that is the case, then your accent should really have much less of an effect than this initial research is showing. So many questions, so few answers. Is this a topic that you've given much thought to? Are there certain accents which you prefer? And do you think that you prefer them because of the way they sound, or because of the certain connotations or meanings associated with that accent? For example, the promise or the possibility of a warm summer French romance when you hear a French accent. Let me know in the comments below.